In India, urban services like water and sanitation, roads and mobility, housing and infrastructure are usually provided through siloed, separate interventions and programs by government or non-profits. However, to build truly livable cities that work for each and every one of us, it's important that we adopt a more holistic approach, an approach that connects all of the dots. Our next session focuses on India's urban development and transformation issues, including transportation. And I invite Parnasha Banerjee from Dasra to introduce the session and the panelists. I also invite the panelists, Shrikant Vishwanathan, K. Padnama Bhaiya, and Sakshi Gudwani. Over to you, Parnasha.
So I think good afternoon, everyone, and welcome once again to the Dasra Philanthropy Week 2020. Thank you for being here in what I personally believe is one of the most exciting and interesting panels of the day. And, before I actually go into introducing my esteemed panelists, just by show of hands of the people in the room, how many of you actually have slums or homeless dwellers staying in your vicinity? Just by show of hands. Yeah, you guys also chime in. Yeah. Okay, and coming back to my most obvious question, how many of you actually took more than an hour to reach to the venue today? The reason why I actually ask these questions is because some of these urban challenges, including lack of affordable housing, lack of better infrastructure is actually faced by 31% of India's population. And in most cases, we think that these urban problems are actually multidimensional. They're multifaceted. They will take years and they will take a lot of time to solve. But, do we really have the time? And today I actually am joined by my esteemed panelists who are solving for some of these challenges on an everyday basis. And I will not go into introducing each of them because you all have the the DPW 2020 app. You can read about their bios, you can read about their profiles in detail, but just in one line, we have Shrikant with us, who is the CEO of Janagraha Center for Citizen and Democracy. We have with us Shri K. Padmana Bhaiya, who is the chairperson of the Administrative Staff College of India. And we have Sakshi Gudwani, who manages the water, sanitation, and hygiene portfolio of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Before I actually thought maybe we could do a little bit of a discussion and before we open it up for questions. In a very recently published article, the Union Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs has declared that India is geared towards achieving urban transformation by 2021 and actually reaching the most vulnerable living in these urban areas, right? And what's important to note here is that the pace and the way at which these cities and urban areas are actually growing will determine how India is able to achieve its sustainable development goals. And the how is something that we need to determine here. If I actually turn to you, Shrikant, we keep talking about this crisis, that there is a crisis, but we don't know how to solve for this urban crisis, right? Where does the crisis lie? If you could tell us that, where is this crisis and how can we solve for it, right? And if you could throw some light around that, that will be helpful.
Sure. Thank you, Parnasha. Most of us and our families those of us who live in cities, spend most of our time in select number of neighborhoods and the city. So the city is a unit of life. The city is a unit of life and therefore a unit of governance and of the economy, much like the state or like the country as a whole. Yet, and therefore it needs a political system and an administrative system to govern the city well, like you have one for the state and for the center. But today, we do not have a system of political leadership or a system of administrative leadership for a city, even as well as we do for the state of the country. So we do not treat the city as a place. We do not treat the city as a unit of governance or of economy. So that lies at the heart of India's urban challenges. So it's a problem of governance, but more specifically, it's a problem of systems thinking, where you're not thinking of the city as a system, but you're thinking of this, and as a place, but you're thinking of the city as an aggregation of sectors. Right? So that lies really at the heart of the problem. And I think we've been very slow to recognize that challenge, and we probably haven't yet recognized the gravity of the challenge that we face, though all of us as citizens of the city do experience the symptoms and manifestations of this challenge. So that's one point I want to make. The second point is, and the more worrying point, is that the state of capacities in India today, in the government, does not lend itself to the government solving this problem by themselves. So if we sit back and believe that as an obligation, the central government or the state government or your municipality is going to be capable of fixing your city or your neighborhood and the quality of life of your city and your neighborhood, we are grossly mistaken. There is empirical evidence to suggest that it is not going to happen, and there is complete lack of imagination and capacities in the governments. And therefore, we need a multi-stakeholder, multi-dimensional kind of thinking. So what is being referred to in some parts of the world as new localism, where we need vertical decentralization of powers from the central government to the state government to the city, and you also need horizontal decentralization from the government to business, civil society, academia. So fixing our cities is, and even the West is facing it, it's not just unique to India, fixing our cities will be one of the most complex 21st century challenges, and it requires a partnership model with the state taking the lead and creating an ecosystem, but with business leaders, philanthropists, civil society, and media providing very strong partnership to the state to solve these problems.
Yeah, thank you, Shrikant. And I think what you mentioned here is actually that multi-stakeholder dimension, right? Like, how do we need to actually speak about the states and the center and keep all of these stakeholders in the picture? So, just actually moving to Padmana Bhaiya, sir. Sir, you have been in the government, and ASCI has had actually vast experience working with the government. And Shrikant brought some of these points up, right? So, when you talk about government, what are some of those ways of actually working with the government? I'm pretty sure people in the room here think that, it is important to work with the government, but working with the government is complicated, right? So how do you kind of deconstruct some of those things, right? And I think if you could shed some light around that would be very helpful.
Thank you. Well, I worked with the government for a long time, but I no longer am with the government. I work with a sort of a voluntary institution, training people, capacity building for various managers in public sector, private sector, and also the joint sector. The points raised by our friend are quite correct, but I want to start the city administration. I think most of us agree that except a few cities, I think most of it is in a mess, the city administration. The reasons, according to me, are they need to be known before we find the solutions. The reasons are, we call them as local self-government bodies. Another name given to them is municipalities. Some of them are called municipal corporations, but otherwise they're all municipalities. Unfortunately, in India, the word municipality has got a pejorative sound about it, pejorative taste about it. Municipality, people just let it go, it's a small body. Two, even though they are local self-government and the problems are local and they need to be solved by those people, the amount of delegation that is required to be done to these bodies, the urban self-governance bodies, have not been given. The reason is a sense of, what should I say, trust, lack of trust. Earlier, this one I was talking about, I was listening, a lack of trust. So these are municipal corporations, except a couple of them, are basically run by the state governments, not by the corporators. They are there, elected. But it's the state government, the chief minister or the minister with the secretary, urban development, and the municipal commissioner, they are the ones who run and not the corporators. There is no role for them. And secondly, what happens is, if the party at the center, at the state level, and in the municipal corporations, if it is the same party, it's okay. Things go on fairly well. But if they happen to be opposite parties, one party is ruling and the municipal corporation which is another party, you have hell of a lot of problems there. So these are some of the major problems. But there are minor problems also relating to the corporations themselves. The point is, the corporation officials who are supposed to deliver the goods, they belong to various cadres from the state government, from the municipal cadres, from joint cadres and all that. And they don't own any sort of allegiance or responsibility to the corporation. They are seconded there, they go away, and that is the second one. But most important of all, I think, is lack of attention by the citizens to the working of the municipal corporations. I would tell you, it is impossible for a municipal corporation to keep a garbage dump anywhere. Everybody wants garbage dumps to be placed, but nobody wants it next to his house, next to his locality. You have to dump the whole thing which is collected somewhere outside the city. But the outside city, there is no outside the city because city is growing so fast, you can't find landfill places at all. Now, there are a lot of encroachments onto the nalas. You know, the storm water drains, ultimately they all flow through the nalas, Miti River or whatever it is, and it goes into the sea. And all these nalas are encroached upon by the people. You can't remove these encroachments because people object to that. We have been living here for a long time. And this is the type of, you don't get cooperation from the civilians, the people, the citizens of this one. Why does it happen? You know, she started with a question saying, how many of you have neighbors, the slum neighbor? Most of you raised their hands, almost about 50%. And the second question you asked was?
How long did it take for you to reach here?
Yeah. So, but the point is, though we are aware of these things, we don't take interest in it because the percentage of people who vote in municipal elections is hardly about 40% over the entire country, much worse than the assembly elections. And then in a city, as I said, it is the state government which runs the corporations and not the corporators themselves. But in a city, there are a lot of bodies. You know, for example, there are professional associations, lawyers associations are there, doctors associations are there, dentist associations, nurses, small Kirana Merchants Association, and then small and big business, medium business association. So many associations are there. They should have a say in the running of the corporation. But none of them are represented there. So, and unless somebody gets elected as a corporator. So what needs to be done is, one of the solutions I have is, you know, in the assemblies, we have a legislative assembly and you have a council, an upper house. In the parliament, you have the Lok Sabha and you have a Rajya Sabha. I think you should have an upper house in the municipal corporations also, representing these various interests of the city, the various professional bodies, all those, so that they have a voice there. They may not have a veto power, but at least whatever the corporation is doing, proposals, they should go to this upper house. The upper house should approve them or suggest what changes should be made. I think that would be a balancing this one, you know. There is another thing, I think, which needs to be done.
Sir, and I think you bring up a very fair point, you know, in terms of actually looking at these municipalities and understanding some of these municipal bodies in how they function and, you know, this entire concept of upper house, etc. And if I could actually turn to Sakshi a little bit and then come back to you again on some of the questions that I would like to ask. You know, Sakshi, you actually bring an experience from the sanitation sector, right? And looking at one solution, basically, how do you solve for some of these bigger issues that both Shrikant and Sir are raising, right? How can actually solving for one problem lead to something like a municipal strengthening or a building of a municipal capacity, right? So if you could just tell us a little bit about that, that will be helpful.
Thanks, Parnasha. Well, that's pretty much defining how our journey as a Gates Foundation has been around municipal system strengthening. we invest in urban sanitation, and the reason the Gates Foundation is interested in urban sanitation is because our shit in cities is not treated. I'm not going to quote any numbers, but optimistic estimates are also really bad and really low. So the reason the shit needs to be treated, just so I put it out there, is because it affects, if it's not treated, it goes untreated into our rivers and our agricultural lands and crops, and pretty much coming back into the salads that you're eating. And hence, public health outcomes are very much linked to making sure your toilet waste is treated. We are very much interested in looking at urban sanitation because the bulk of the load, because of the density of our cities, is in urban. And we are one of the very few funders here, which is unfortunate, and that's going to be my pitch very soon. But the more we started investing in most of our partners who are also in the room, and looking at how states and cities can solve for the problem of fecal sludge management, we realize we're trying to put on a vertical of sanitation service delivery on a broken horizontal of municipal systems, which is what Shrikant and Sir have spoken about. And that got us interested in saying that even if we do focus on this vertical of ensuring that cities have enough treatment plants and treatment infrastructure, how do you ensure service delivery happens? And service delivery happens not only for sanitation, but other, like water and other services. And now we did look at potential solutions that, we've invested in Janagra, and they're trying to solve it for us in one particular state with the hope and potential that many other states in the country can take it on, and many other systems, cities in the country take it on. One nuance that we forget around urban is that we do see a lot of investment getting into bigger cities, Delhi, Bombay, the metros, and still we have issues around air pollution, water scarcity. But no one's even looking at the long tail of small and medium cities in India, which are actually resource-starved, which have no human resources, no powers to do any work, and which is why I think I'm hoping that the work that we're doing with both Janagra and ASCII and some of the partners in the room can help solve for that bulk of small and medium cities as well.
Yeah, and I think as you talk about small and medium towns and cities, right? Like we always think about urban development being for the people, or for the people actually who are here, you, me, etc., right? And we end up actually leaving the most vulnerable, the marginalized people, right? Be it the urban poor who are living in the slums, and we spoke about that question, that how many people have homeless dwellers around their vicinity, and women, more importantly. So how do you actually ensure equitable and inclusive service delivery when you actually talk about service delivery in a larger system of municipalities, etc.? How do you ensure that?
You're asking me the question. I'm hoping cities can figure this out, but maybe I think how cities have been designed for years and years are, they always start about planning at the city center, at the center of the city, and then go outwards. And by the time they reach out is where on the periphery is where you'll have the low-income settlements. I think there has to be a huge pivot around planning for the urban poor first, and then thinking about planning for other parts of the city. There are many solutions and specific models that I'm sure both my fellow panelists can talk about, which have been experimented to figure out how urban service delivery can be made equitable, especially for the urban poor. And there are models that are happening for sanitation in the cities of Maharashtra itself. Actually, you should go and see those. And they're happening in the cities of Vai and Sinnar, which is called scheduled desludging, linked to sanitation tax. And that just cross-subsidizes that service delivery for citizens. But there are many such models. And for the Gates Foundation, definitely, we have to keep the low-income settlements at the center even when we think about our investments, and think about gender more deliberately, having outcomes and investment associated with gender budgeting. You can't go also set up equal number of toilets in cities for men and women. You have to figure out how many toilets seats for women, because we have more needs than men in those public toilets as well. So even that kind of planning has to be instilled. A lot of cities are actually starting to do that based on the technical assistance that some of our partners are providing. So the human brain power is there to find those solutions. It's how soon we can have cities adopt those.
And I think what you say here is that, there is this human brain power, and I think we have these two human brain powers sitting here who can actually tell us about what are some of their models, right? And how have they gone about solving for these challenges? And
Only two of them?
Well, there are many, but I mean, here I have two of them with me, right? And Shrikant, if you could tell us a little bit about how Janagra is actually working on some of these things and trying to solve for some of these issues that you speak about and that you actually spoke about earlier.
So the overall approach that we use, or you could say what keeps us going, was pithily put by one of our co-founders as urgent patience. So urgency in efforts, but patience with results. So the thing is, we stay at the problem for a very long period of time because our worldview is that complex systems problems may not really get solved within our own lifetimes. That's not cause for us to be laid back and complacent, but that's actually more reason for us to work with a greater sense of urgency, collaboration, and focus. So that's at the heart of our work, which means we don't we really, while we like to think that we are agile and responsive to political economy and context, we really don't change what we do over short periods of time, right? Because I think these are very large problems, and in some ways, fixing our cities, I would argue, bizarre though it may sound, is actually more complicated than the independence movement. Because in the independence movement, you had one large central goal with which nobody would disagree. Everybody aligned on it. Whereas when you're trying to fix the city as a place, you're essentially trying to fix democracy at a small level. It's really complex, and this is being confronted by even developed Western nations in the context of climate change, immigration, segregation of neighborhoods by racial parameters, all kinds of in various dimensions, equity, and so on. So there is a need to take a whole of systems approach and stay with the problem for long periods of time and not believe that you will achieve the end outcome within 3 to 5 years. Because the long-term solution to many of the challenges that we face in our cities is to strengthen democracy at the grassroots, is to fix local self-government. So that's essentially at the heart of the approach. And wherever we have succeeded, it's only because we worked both with the government and with citizens. So essentially making sure that you work at the central and state governments and at the local government level, but on policy advocacy, on changing the rules of the game. At the same time, you also work with citizens. So, you essentially complete the entire story.
Just a follow-up question on that. You told me that you actually work with citizens, and when we talk about broken cities, and we talk about how, the onus, it's always feels like the onus is on the government. The onus is actually on the municipalities, right, to fix this. But I think people here and all of us here have an equal authority and equal onus to demand for those services, right? I mean, I as a citizen of India should be able to demand for quality service delivery. So, what is that role of if you could just tell me in like, few lines, just what is that role of citizen, right? What are those implementation steps that I can actually take?
Okay, I would say it's active citizenship, right? The orientation that each of us is first a citizen of the neighborhood and of the city, even before you're a citizen of the state or of the country, right? So frankly, the budget of the central government or, speech of your prime minister on the Independence Day, etc., matters a lot lesser than what your municipality does, right? How many of us tuned into the union budget speech? How many of us tuned into our city budget speech? Right? So I rest my case.
Yeah. Sir, and if I could actually move to you, Administrative Staff College of India has had a proven model and proven solutions around water, sanitation, hygiene, and solid waste management. So, if you could tell us a little bit about ASCII's model and, how that is a scalable model and what are some of those replicable practices that can be taken to other geographies in India. So, if you could just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. But before I talk about the ASCII model, let me mention about these services to be provided by the municipal corporation. You know, most of us would know this. The municipal corporation, for example, take Bombay. The municipality has 3 types of jobs to do. One is regulatory functions. For example, building permissions, and then layout permissions, and then if there are bad, people who have violated the building regulation, demolish them. So these are all regulatory functions. The second function is huge projects being taken up, developmental ones. For example, a big flyover to be done, an auditorium to be built, a great park to be done and all that, capital works. The third one is services, provision of services, maintenance. The services, what are the services that these people are required to give? One is clean water, and then clean disposal of water, proper disposal of wastewater, treatment of that water, so that it doesn't go into your lakes and nalas and rivers and all that. The third one is solid waste disposal. We collect a tremendous amount of solid waste in in the city. Now, how is it being disposed of? So these are the service functions. There are other service functions like registration of births and deaths and all that, but they are not very important. The most important ones are these. Unfortunately, what is happening is, either at the political level with the state government or at the corporation level also, the focus is on the first 2, the regulatory functions, because it gives a lot of power to the municipal authorities and to the municipal commissioner, to say that this building can come up or cannot come up and all that. The second priority is for these major projects, huge projects to be built, because again, big buildings, huge capital, big budgets, you can spend money and all that. Very little attention is being given to the last one, which is service delivery. Now, she asked a question, how do you do that? Every municipal corporation has got an act called Right to Services Act, and they're supposed to do that. And then they give a list of services to be rendered, within what time it is to be rendered and all that. But we all know that the garbage is not being cleared, and it's not being properly disposed of and all that. So I have a suggestion. What I think should be done is, the citizens must demand that the last one gets the highest priority. How do you get it? Bombay has got an example. Bombay Municipal Corporation also has got a body called BEST, B-E-S-T, which runs the electric services and the bus services. It is a part of the municipal corporation, but runs as an autonomous body, and it does excellent work. You are all aware of it. I think one should have a sort of, the services should be separated from the municipal corporation functions. It would be part of the corporation, but it has to be a separate focus has to be given on that. I think that is one way of doing it, Coming to the ASCII's model, what we have...
Sir, just in the interest of time, if you could actually tell us some of the key points about ASCII's model, which is something...
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. I will just take half a minute, in that. One of the things is this wastewater. Water, the amount of water that is available, the equitable distribution of water, then the wastewater recycling, all that. Then sludge, for example, fecal sludge. How do you remove it? The toilets are of different types. Some of them are joined to the sewer system. Some of them have got only the septic tank. Some of them don't even have that. How do you dispose of these things? The second one is, of course, the solid waste disposal. What we have done in the corporation is, in the corporations, I would take the case of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, which were one state. There is not a single city in both the states which have an underground sewage system. Hyderabad city has part of it covered by the underground sewage system. Otherwise, it's not there. Now, what happens is, it is so expensive for any city now to go in for an underground sewage system. One is, it's prohibitively expensive. 2, you don't have the water to flush out the entire systems and all that. Water scarcity. So what we have done is, We have gone in with the help of Bill Gates and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Dasra. We have gone for a decentralized distribution of this. The fecal sludge is collected, it is treated there, a huge set of proper trained sanitation workers are created. In the city, about 5, 6, 7, depending on the demand, a sort of treatment plants, fecal sludge treatment plants are provided. Ultimately, a major treatment plant is provided. So we have decentralized the whole thing. And I think this is the only system which can work now. It has worked in 2 cities, Warangal in Telangana and Narsapur in Andhra Pradesh. Now this is being replicated in all the 75 cities in Telangana and also another 75 cities in Andhra Pradesh. This model has now been accepted by the government of India, and they have circulated it to various places to go in for the decentralized sludge management and waste management. One more thing we are trying to do is talking about, I'm told almost about 40 to 50% of the audience here are philanthropists, funders, and all that. But they told me that most of you fund educational activities, health activities, and the third one is skill development. I think what you should do is, we are not looking for funds, but I think what you should do is, the funders and the philanthropists must become a part of this urban development, urban rejuvenation plan. Please join, we are not a government body, ASCI. ASCI is a management training institution. I think you should support some of those institutions, not necessarily by money, but by giving your time, by participating in its activities, by being on the board of ASCI and such other bodies. I think that would be a great help, to awaken the interest of people in the urban development.
And,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Actually, you bring up a very fair point. I think most funders and most people who are ready to actually talk about funding some of these initiatives don't get into urban thinking that this is a very large, unsolvable problem, right? But you have to actually look at some of these implementation models like Janagraha, like that of ASCII, and look at it at a more systems and holistic level, right? And even if it takes time, it's imperative to actually for us to take that bet. And I think, sir, you've already gone into my last round of question, and I promise I'm seeing the time. I promise it's going to take 30 seconds each. If 50% of this audience here is actually funders, and let's just assume all of them here are ready to invest into urban transformation and some of these urban challenges after hearing from all of you. What's that one Monday call to action, right, for each one of them here? Shrikant, if you could go first.
1, don't try and fix the problem, fix the system. That'll outlive you. 2nd, as an individual, spend 2 hours a week giving your time to neighborhood level civic challenges so we understand life in a city better. 3, as an organization and as an individual, give some percentage, whatever percentage that you believe is appropriate, some percentage of your time and resources back to the city that you live in or the neighborhood that you live in addition to all the philanthropic causes that you may be invested in. What's the fun of living in Bombay and not being able to give back to Bombay but cutting a check for rural Jharkhand?
And sir, I think you've already made a point, but if you could just say it in one line,
Just
what's that
restate it.
action?
These are all thought leaders, What we want is your time and your sort of dedication to the work, to the urban issues, I think that would be a great help. And if you wish, funding can come later or may not come. But I think please give your time, to these urban problems.
And I know, Sakshi, you have supported both Janagraha and ASCII, and you have actually supported them. So if I were to actually look at you from a funder lens, right, what is that one call to action that you would like to give to these funders in the room?
Well, if you haven't converted yet, just walk through your nearby slum or low-income settlement. You'll see your shit flowing through their drains. If that doesn't move you, I don't know what else I could say. And then go back to Janagraha and ASCII and CEP University and CDD and Dasra and Washai, who will help you figure out what you can do in your city for this transformation to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think for all those who are still on the fence, this is your time to convert. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you.